In this lecture, we're going to do a recap on hubs, switches, and hubs versus switches. So we've already covered this material, but I want to make sure we go through it one more time just to help further prepare you for discussions in this section. So hubs, remember hubs and switches do the exact same thing. They're both used to connect devices together within a network. So looking at our basic diagram here, if we didn't know what this was, this could either be a hub or a switch. Now, hubs are antiquated network devices and they're no longer used, but that's not to say you won't run into one of these in your career. So they've been replaced by switches, and we call them dumb network devices because they're nothing more than a multi-port repeater. So when information comes from one computer, let's say this is computer 1 and this is computer 2, if computer 1 wants to communicate with computer 2, let me go ahead and change the color of this to green. So let's say that computer 1 sends some data to the hub. What the hub is going to do, it's going to send that data out to computer 2. It's going to send it down to this computer as well. And it's also going to send it out to this computer. So it's a multi-port repeater. Traffic goes in one port and it's repeated out to every other port. Now, because it's a dumb network device, we call it a layer 1 device. So layer 1 of the OSI model, that's the layer that hubs operate on. Now, comparing a hub to a switch, it's definitely much less efficient, because if we think about it from the perspective of the data coming in here and going out all the other ports, well, it's going to take up a lot more bandwidth. There's going to be the potential for a lot more collisions on the network, and it's also going to be a lot less secure. So if we think about hackers listening in, well, they could be on any of these other ports. They could plug in their computer on an open physical port on this hub, and they could listen in on network traffic. So that's our quick refresher on hubs. Now, switches, our basic switch. So we're going to cover this, but also understand I'm going to go in a lot more detail regarding switches throughout this section. So it connects devices just like a hub does, but it's an intelligent network device, because remember, if we go back to this diagram, and let's say we have computer 1 here and computer 2 here, if computer 1 wants to communicate with computer 2, the data is only going to go to computer 2, because remember, switches memorize MAC addresses. So they memorize MAC addresses of every single device that's connected to them via their MAC address table, and we'll talk about how this works later in this section. So what they do specifically is they pay attention to both the source MAC address and the destination MAC address. So they have this table that they have within them that tells them which physical port each MAC address is on. So a very important thing is that when we have switches, they break up collision domains. So with a hub, it's one big collision domain. And when all the devices are connected to a hub and they're all trying to communicate at the same time, data is just going to be pushed out to every single port, and so all these computers have the potential of running into each other, meaning their packets are going to potentially run into each other as they're trying to communicate. Well, with a basic switch, because data only goes to the specific destination, it breaks up those collision domains into smaller collision domains, so the likelihood of a collision happening is a lot lower. So in terms of the benefits, in terms of breaking up collision domains, well, of course, that's a huge benefit because traffic goes in one port and it's repeated out only to the destination port. This increases potential bandwidth of the network, and it really is the standard in today's network infrastructure, and it's also a lot more secure compared to a hub. So one more slide as our recap. So hubs are dumb devices, whereas switches are intelligent devices. Hubs are going to flood data out of all the ports. So data comes in one, it goes out to all of them. Conversely, a switch is going to learn what MAC addresses are associated to each physical port, and it's only going to send that data out to the specific port for a specified MAC address. Hubs are operating in OSI layer 1, whereas switches operate on layer 2, but they can also operate, and I'm going to put a little arrow right here, they can also operate on the OSI layer 3, which you'll learn in this section as well. Our basic switches operate on OSI layer 2.